Panama, a country in Central America, between Costa Rica and Colombia, has a population of 4.1 million. The only place in the world where you can see the sunrise on the Pacific and set on the Atlantic from the same spot. It contains the America's narrowest part. Only 80 kilometers separates the Atlantic from the Pacific Ocean. Despite a wealth of natural resources, Panama's US dollar-based economy is largely service-driven, primarily from activities around the Panama Canal and the Colón Free Trade Zone. Panama, along with its beautiful landscapes and scarce regulation on tax-exempt offshore banking, attracts large amounts of foreign investment and tourists. However, this wouldn't be possible without the following events. In 1821, after claiming the independence from Spain, Panama becomes a province of Colombia. In 1845, three New York businessmen form the Panama Railroad Company and obtain rights to build a railroad across the isthmus from the government of Colombia. It becomes the first transcontinental railroad in the world. Even though Panama wasn't considered a country yet, this was the first political relation between the US and Panama. In 1855, the Panama Railroad is completed. The first train runs from the Atlantic Ocean all the way across the Isthmus of Panama to the Pacific Ocean. In 1881, the Panama Canal project begins under the direction of the French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps. This French diplomat was a hero in France as the principal director of the Suez Canal. Because of its success, Lesseps thinks that a similar sea-level canal can be built in Panama. 2 years later, due to differences in the tides between the Pacific and the Atlantic, Ferdinand de Lesseps abandons his Panama Canal project. Over 25,000 people died from malaria and yellow fever. In 1901, the second Howe-Pasaporte Treaty is signed. The United States is given extensive rights by Colombia for building and operating a canal across Panama. In 1903, the Panamanian Philip Bunau Varilla meets with President Roosevelt in Washington to inform him about the Panamanian rebellion and asks for military support. After a one-day coup, in which an American warship offshore prevented Colombia from stopping the revolt, Panama declares independence. The Bunau Varilla Treaty is signed, granting the United States a strip of lands across the Isthmus of Panama and the right to build and fortify the Panama Canal. A year later, the United States acquires control of the Panama Canal Zone, and Panama adopts the US dollar as its currency. In 1914, the Panama Canal is officially open to traffic. From 1968 to 1981, General Omar Torrijos, the National Guard chief, overthrows the elected president and imposes a dictatorship. In 1977, President Carter and General Torrijos signed the Panama Canal Treaties. 2 years later, the former intelligence chief and one-time US CIA informant Manuel Noriega becomes head of the National Guard, builds up the size of the force, which he renames the Panama Defense Forces, and greatly increases its power over Panama's political and economic life. In 1988, the US charges Noriega with drug trafficking. A year later, Noriega declares a state of war in the face of increased threats by the US. Later on, the US invades Panama, ousts Noriega, and replaces him with Guillermo Endara. Finally, in 1999, US hands over control to the Panama Canal, ending the American era.
And I believe that this treaty can open up a new era of understanding and comprehension, friendship and mutual respect throughout not only this hemisphere, but throughout the world.